All right, welcome everyone to the very first episode of In the Men's Room with Chad. This is a space where we're going to have real conversations about what it means to be a husband, a father, and just a man in 2025. No gimmicks, no experts, at least in the first episode, and nobody telling us how to live our lives, just a group of guys trying to figure things out together. So I've gathered a group of men, some dads, husbands, professionals, each with their own unique perspective on life. And every other week, we're going to sit down, talk about what's on our minds, push each other to think, grow, and maybe even challenge each other to see things in a new perspective. This isn't a debate show. We're not here to argue, but we are here to have honest conversation about what we're all trying to navigate in our search for meaningful lives as men. So let's kick things off by getting to know each other and who's in the room. Each of us will take a few minutes to introduce ourselves. I'll go ahead and go first. So, as I said, I'm Chad. I've got 2 kids, 9 years old, twins. I'm an adoptive parent. I've been married for about 15 years this summer and living in a north suburb of Minneapolis. I've worked in higher education for about 16 years of my life, which is hard to believe because that's something that old people say. But here we are, almost 40, worked there 16 years. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, but feel free to share whatever is important you think for folks to understand your perspective. Taylor might have the microphone issues, so we'll start with him and see how that's going. Hey, Taylor.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Taylor, and I teach psychology at a community college. I got 3 kids. There's 3, 5, and 8. And when it comes to masculinity, I learned a lot from my brothers, but I really disagreed with them on a lot of things. So basically, I didn't agree with the tough guy mentality. So I really didn't fit in that way. Yeah, what else were we supposed to talk about?
Just anything in general. I think that was pretty good. You covered family. You covered a little bit about yourself. Yeah, you teach. I'm excited to have that psychology perspective. So hopefully we can get that nerdy professor to come out of you a little bit, Taylor, as we go
For
on.
sure. Yeah, I'm ready. I got theories and ideas from psychology that I think will help understand masculinity. If you know anything about, I think Carl Jung's theory of the animus, how men are supposed to hide their sensitive side, is a pretty good starting point. You know, it's kind of a cultural thing that we've all been kind of taught, but I think is starting to be questioned. People are realizing that being vulnerable is a sign of strength and not weakness. I think that's a cultural shift that's happening.
I love it. That's the exact nerdy stuff that I'm here for, Taylor. So keep throwing those theories in there. I saw some heads nodding yes. So I think we're all a little bit familiar with that, but I'm going to dive more into that later for sure. Brett, welcome to the table, Brett.
Yeah. No, happy to be here. Yeah. So I'm Brett. I have 2 kids. One is 6 years old and the other one is 13 months old. So sort of in the throngs of early parenthood here in our household. Married to my wife for coming up on 14 years. So I'm really, proud of that and excited about that. We met in college. Similar to Chad, I've worked in higher education for 15 years now.
See, it's old people stuff. Those numbers are too big, Brett.
I've been in higher education, working in there. Currently, serve as a manager, so I get to work with people all day long, every day. So it's a lot of fun. And then I also teach on the side as well, Taylor. But even just as nerdy and a different topic on online learning, I get to do that on the side. And yeah, for me, I think in terms of masculinity and just sort of my, where I fall at, I mean, it's interesting having 2 girls and like still, thinking about how masculinity is sort of contrast, having 2 girls and then being like, me and my dog are the only males in the house. So like, it's kind of, my days are filled with like rainbows and butterflies and doll houses and everything else, even though my oldest is pretty sporty. But I think for me, I just try to be, I try to be a source of strength for them, a source of support for them, just as kids. I find that, because they are younger, and I feel like my responsibility and my focus is there. I mean, as much as I want to grow my career, as much as I want to do a lot of things in my life right now, everything I have is just targeted towards sort of taking care of my kids and being there for them. So
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate you diving into that for us. All right, Larry, last but not least, fill us in. Who are you?
Love it. Yeah. Larry Cloud. I am a husband. I've been with my wife partner, Jess, now also 14 years, coming up in June. We've actually been together. Our official date started on October 1st, in 2007. We actually did the math last night for something completely random. We've been together now for 6,336 days on the dot.
wow.
No, I literally would not have known that until yesterday. So here we are. We have a 3-year-old son who turns 4 on St. Patrick's Day. It's coming up here very soon. My St. Patrick's Days are very much different than they used to be. So a lot more juice boxes and popsicles and a lot less green beer, unfortunately. But you get what you get. My previous life, I was also in higher ed. I worked in higher ed for 12 years. I'm doing orientation and retention programs for large colleges. But over the last 3 years, I've transitioned into the corporate world. I used to be a leadership trainer. I used to work with managers in big companies around the world, teaching them what it means to be an effective manager and really up-level our people's management skills. But now I currently work at a tech company in employee experience and HR, where I lead new hire onboard, different kind of onboarding, just new folks in a corporate space. And I do a lot of training, leadership, employee support programs and things like that in just a different sector. Been an interesting transition for sure. A little bit about me and I guess masculinity. I come from a military family. My dad is a Marine. And so I think that's where a lot of my masculinity and views of masculinity come from, right?
Yeah.
You when you're raised in that kind of atmosphere, there are certain things you do or you don't do, you say that you don't say, they really shaped how I viewed masculinity. But I also say that I think my view, and one reason I'm really excited to do this podcast with all of you all, I think as I grow older and as I turn 40 this year, my grasp of masculinity and how I view it has really shifted often, right? In different stages of my life. When I went to college and I joined the fraternity and then I got married and now I have a son. And so I think all these things have really shaped and have made my views of it always be different. And so I'm continued excited to hear what you all say. So hopefully that will also allow me to even have a stronger understanding of what it means to me, and excited to share what I have as well. So yeah, thanks for having me, Chad. Thanks for the invite. Excited to do this with y'all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You all, I invited these group, and we've got a couple more folks that'll join us in future podcasts that couldn't be here today. So we've got a couple more of our members that'll be here probably at the next podcast. But I invited you all together because I like to surround myself with men who are interested in learning about why we do what we do. Why do I feel the way that I feel? Why do I even like the things that I like? Sometimes I got myself questioning myself all over the place. So just an opportunity to bring together some guys who don't mind being reflective and being a little bit vulnerable and kind of see where this goes. Maybe we can learn a few things along the way. So to kick it off, you guys all kind of started with that word masculinity. So I want to dive into that a little bit closer. And I want to talk about that word masculinity. So what comes to mind when you hear that? What are the first words that pop into your head? And then, yeah, see what kind of comes up for you all. I don't care who gets started, but what words come up when you think of masculinity?
I'll go. It's actually off of what Larry said. And so I'm coming up next week will be 1 year since I lost my dad. So I've been thinking a lot about, parenthood and fatherhood over the last year as I lost him. And I kept thinking evolving, that's kind of what I think of when I think of masculinity. It's going to change over time. I'm not going to be exactly like my dad. My dad was really good in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, there are some things that could have been better with my dad, as much as I loved him. So I want to think about how over time, not only just personally, I can evolve as a father, as a man, challenge myself, grow, but also emulate that for my kids. So they can see that evolving and changing and growing and challenging can be beneficial. And you don't have to stay in one place. You don't have to have a certain view your entire life. You can learn and grow from other people and from other experiences. So I think that was the top word that stuck out to me. And Larry, your story there just kind of made me think of it.
And I think I would say one thing that you just sparked in my mind, I think this idea of masculinity for me is it just always understanding that other people are watching, especially as I, again, grow older and I have children and I become a role model. I volunteer at church and things like that, and knowing that folks are like watching me and doing what I'm doing. And I think when I was younger, and again, like in college, when I joined a fraternity, to me, masculinity was emulating other men, that I had to act a certain way, I had to dress a certain way, I had to talk a certain way for me to be seen in that male, what people define as an actual like strong male figure. And to me, I think it's less of me wanting to blend in and me more wanting to stand out to be what I feel like a man should be, right? Someone that is a protector, that's selfless, that's vulnerable, all these things that I feel like to me makes a modern male really strong. And so I think again, this evolution of masculinity to me over these years, as I've gained more roles, as I've gotten more confident in who I am. I've figured out my other identities in my life. I think that evolution has allowed me to understand it's not about that blending in piece, but again, standing out and understanding that there's always eyes on you. And that I want people to look at me and say, that's a good man, right? That's a good man. And I think that's important to me in my evolution with what it means to be a man in my masculinity.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks.
Yeah,
Taylor, do you have anything to add?
One of the biggest things for me, and you both kind of mentioned, I think, your parents and how like you want things better for your kids than they were for you. And I think that makes sense, right? Like we want to push things forward as men and as parents. And also I want things to be better, like for my son and my kids as well than they were for me. So that's just progress, I think. But also I think one thing for being a man that comes to mind for me that would push things forward would be to be in control of myself, right? And so, whereas I think in the past it may have been men wanting to control things in general, I think it would be just being in control of myself and showing that kind of a strength of calmness or being present and being emotionally in control of the self-steady, maybe is another way you could think about it.
Yeah.
And so being a man, I think for me, that's a huge like goal of mine, is just to be control myself, because I've struggled with that a lot, watching my dad's temper growing up and stuff like that, and just trying to be better with that. And I'll be honest, when I played sports, that wasn't always the case where I was in control of myself,
Yeah.
But as I've matured and stuff and realized, like you said, oh, the kids are always watching, right? My son is always watching, and he learns from that, and so do my daughters too, So if I can be in control, that's a good example, and that's a form of progress.
So many good nuggets in there. Yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
No, I had that same thought. It was this last year, it's been balance, like that control thing, but it's been finding like balance as a dad, as an employee, right? Like I can't spend all day doing things that benefit me, like or vice versa. But like I can't be spending, 8-9 hour day at work and then like going and working out or going and, I don't know, cooking because I like to cook, or doing these things that are going to take away from my time with my family, and just trying to find balance, and being a dad. And then like, on the weekends, like I may spend too much time with my kids, and like, not enough, like, growing professionally, doing things that might make me some money. Right. This past year, especially, it's just been like, maybe it's having the baby, but that's just been my focus. And I don't know if I'm finding the right balance or not, but I'm really trying to shut things off, and I just devote my time to my kids. And sometimes I think like if that's the right move, like if I should be spending some time, maybe, doing things that may make money, and set them up for the future a little bit more.
Yeah, that's always the tough one.
Yeah.
To figure out how to fill that extra time. Any time that's downtime, it's not extra time. But yeah, I'm with you there. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, and then like in the evening, like finding time, like what should I be doing with like the 30 to 40 minutes of time that I have to myself and my kids go to bed? Like, like I'm sitting there thinking, like, read something. Should I like? I'm like, I might bed and watch the TV show, and then I feel guilty about that because I'm like, I'm not doing anything really productive, but at the same time,
you shouldn't though, because that is you finding balance. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
balance means different things, I think. And if you find yourself like not being able to focus in whatever way, it could be your brain telling you. It's kind of like I find that I play video games the most when it's like around finals week, because my life is the least balanced that it ever is. You know what I mean? And so it's your brain trying to tell you, hey, you need to take a break.
Yeah.
And the other thing with balance, you think about,
Wait, we lost you, Taylor. The other thing with balance, go ahead.
oh, okay. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking about how purpose used to be like my biggest life goal and thing that I cared about the most, right? And so then I kind of realized that, well, life has to be about having fun too. And you mentioned making money, and it's like a balance of all of these things, right? Especially being a dad. I mean, that's what being a dad is like trying to balance everything all together at once. I guess that's being a parent in general. But yeah, so I've realized now that purpose means a little less to me than it did. Maybe it's because I got the job that gives me the purpose, you know? And so now I just want to enjoy life a little bit more. Like, it used to be that I was probably 90% purpose and 10% enjoyment in life. And now it's more like 70-30. And is it going to keep going in that direction? You know, I don't know. It's just maybe we're thinking about like, what is that percent for you? And are you trying to orient and live your life that way to live up to that percent?
Some of it is also just the nature of like where we're at in life with the ages of the children, right? Like I'm hearing you
Yeah,
guys,
yeah.
Taylor, I think you said what, 3, 5, and 8? 3,
Yeah,
5,
3, 5, and 8. Yeah, 3, 6, and
3,
8. About
5,
to
and
be
8.
big.
And Brett, you've got an 18-month-old and how old?
Oh my goodness.
Girl, 13 months and 13 months.
13 months. Wow.
And Larry, yours is 2?
4 next month.
4.
Yep. Yeah.
How is that possible? It feels like just yesterday y'all were
I
having
know.
that baby.
I
So,
know. Wow.
okay,
I've
so
time
I
flies.
mean, I think at this point in life, right, like the demands placed on parents in general is different, and it evolves, right? I'm just now getting to the point where my kids are almost 10, although developmentally, I would say we're not showing any signs of that age just yet. But genuinely, like, you know, you start to be able to be a little further from home. You can maybe leave them by themselves and walk around the block. What are some of the things that you all have found, like what's been the things you've had to give up in order to make that space for yourselves? When balance is getting tough, what is the thing that you're having to sacrifice?
For me, probably sleep. I'm not a good sleeper. I stay up really late, but I also like Brett said, it's like finding that time where I could just do things that I enjoy to be able to focus on myself. And I know that when my kid's asleep, my focus is with him most of the day, but when he's asleep and I know he's safe and he's doing the things he needs to do, allows me the time to just, you know, unplug or recharge, do the things that I love to do, spend time with my wife and things that she loves to do as well. I think that's a big thing for me. I think for me, the way that I also look at it too, you all use the word balance. And I think for me, and I used to say the same thing when I worked, the work that I do now, work-life balance, not a real thing, right? Your work and life are going to be the same balance. Same thing as being a father, a son, a husband, a person. I think it's all about integration, right? And I also think that helps me reframe how I spend my time and how I prioritize my time with my family. Like Chad said, as our kids grow, as we grow old, as we get new hobbies and new priorities, the way that we integrate those things together are going to shift as well, right? It doesn't ever have to be truly balanced, but instead to figure out how do we integrate it in a way that makes sense for our families, makes sense for me. A great example, like, I love video games as well. About 5 months ago, I introduced my kid to his first video game, and it was a great integration, right? Still spending time with him, showing him something that I love, and he loves it too. With running around with Lego Spider-Man and Superman, but it also just allows me to start to introduce him to things that I love, and it's again that integration. And I'm very excited, Chad, as my kid gets older, he will be on a tennis court with me to integrate my fatherhood and my hobbies together.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective, and we'll have, I'm sure, an episode all by itself. I have a lot of stuff with sports and masculinity that I'm excited to talk about. But yeah, I always have myself finding that balance between like, I want to show you what I love so that you're exposed to it. And like, you know, I mean, I love golf. Like, I kind of wouldn't mind if one of you ends up being a phenom. Like, that'd be great for me. But we got to start young, if not. But then also, I really don't want to push them towards what I love because I want to help push them towards what they love.
Yeah.
So it's about that mixture of like, now I want to share this with you because it's something that I love. And I think now that I look back, I see the difference, right? Like I see the difference between when I was doing that with my dad for time spent together and when I was doing it because I was learning something new for myself. But that just kind of triggered me. It's good thought, Larry. I like that. Yeah. Get him on the tennis court. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Needs to be there right away.
Yeah, and if they love it, awesome. And if they don't, then whatever they love, you can support that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of how I love the idea of integration, though. That is true. At least introducing them to this stuff is awesome. I do always say life-work balance, though. I'd never say work-life because life should be first, then work in my eyes. So maybe I if I was at a work function right now, maybe I shouldn't say that, but
No, that's perfect. That's a smart thought. Put life first.
Yeah.
be
Absolutely.
a better worker. You put life first.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a conversation I often have with my team as well. Just that you know, finding a way to balance and make sure you put your whole self and take care of your whole self. It's going to make you a better employee. And it, my philosophy that if they can have better balance, better take care of themselves just in general, both physical and mental, then they're going to be in a better place with work. But like when Chad, you were asking about like, what have I given up or what have I like decreased in my life? I mean, I think there's several things like Chad, like I love to golf. Chad been commiserated about that. And so like when I started having kids, like when I first had my first kid, I mean, it was gone. Like it was heavy. Like I just,
Yeah.
golf requires a lot of practice. It requires not only that, it requires a lot of time. You can't just, go to a golf course and fiddle around. It's like 3 or 4 hours. And those hours could be spent being with my kids and being with my family and my wife. And I just had to prioritize that. That was a decision I made. And I don't regret it at all, but my game has definitely suffered because I haven't been out to the court.
Right.
But, just as my eldest was getting like, 5, 6 years old, I was like, oh, I might have a little more time to play golf. And then we decided to have a second kid. So, now we're back to square one. I think as they get older, like Larry, you mentioned, like, of course, like I'm going to get both my kids out on the golf course just to see if it's something they're interested in. But I'm also getting them interested in stuff that I never was interested in, like gymnastics and,
Right.
everything like that. Like I've got them in soccer, I've got them in dance, and we're going to do softball. We'll do that. Like, I don't care what, I just want them to have exposure to the things that, I feel privileged, honestly, to be able to like get them to these places and have the time to like juggle everything, to make it happen for them. If they fall in love with it, great. If not, then, at least it's fun for them and I get to spend time with them doing something,
Yeah.
doing something they love. Other than that, give up, being super fit. That went out the door too. Like,
Yeah, me too. That's exactly what happened for me. It was
Relatable.
I see.
totally,
Yeah, that's what I
it
tell.
was just fatherhood that did it.
Yeah.
Way to go,
Otherwise,
way to go, Colin. Gosh.
That might have
Mhm.
happened before I had
Yeah.
kids.
no, but I think fitness, that's a really good point because like, so if I have the privilege of working from home, I'm very lucky that I get to work from home, right? And I think a lot of folks think that those of us that work from home are maybe have a bit more flexibility. And for maybe some folks, you do. I don't have a lot of time. I work from 8 to 4:30. Like I'm still sometimes in meetings when my kids are getting home. Like I don't have that time. And then it gets to be 5 o'clock. The kids are finally home. I'm like, do I go spend an hour walking on the treadmill? Like, in the summer we can go out, they can ride their bikes in front of me and we can be engaging together. But in the winter, like, so now I've got this choice. Like, do I take care of my own body and what I know that I need? Or, do I like somehow change that up, not do the walk and instead spend time with my kids? And then you got the debate between like, well, they need to see that their dad's healthy. So like, do I model that? I don't know what the fuck to do. So honestly, I don't know that there's a right answer, but I can relate a lot to just the ways in which you take care of yourself, whether it's your mental health or your physical health or whatever. I can very much relate.
Yeah, I agree
Well,
on the
yeah.
working. I agree on the
So
working.
you also mentioned in there, you guys kind of started talking a little bit about work there, and maybe this isn't a big thing, but as a leader, I was always keenly aware of being a white man as a leader, right? The identities that you bring to your leadership. In what ways do you notice how being a man kind of impacts the way you do your job? Are you aware of it? Do you change anything as a result of it? Do you notice things? So, for example, when I was leading teams, give you guys a little bit more time to think. But I used to supervise about 15 people, and when I'm meeting with the women on my team, I'm very aware of the fact that like many of them may not have received the same type of advice about being aggressive with your career. They might not have experienced the same level of encouragement as I got because naturally people knew, right, that I was always going to kind of gravitate towards being a leader. So I would kind of bring that to my leadership style and making sure that I'm lifting up others or just being aware when I enter a room. Like I'm very aware of like, do not mansplain, right? Like if somebody else explains something, like make sure that you're listening and paying attention. Because sometimes I mansplain just because I wasn't friggin' listening, right? It didn't mean to it didn't mean to be masculinity. I didn't even hear what you said, that I just said the same thing. But sometimes I'll come in and overspeak a woman who just had a great idea, and then I make it seem like it was my own and it's better received. So I think I just bring that awareness. And I'm just curious, like, what that looks like for you all at work, or if it even comes up. And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah. I think for me, I really, since I got into leadership and really when I started in the field of what I do, which is I started out as an instructional designer, which is all about listening. It's all about listening to your subject matter expert and conveying it. So I really tried to just take that into when I became a leader, is I try to listen to more than I talk, and that enables me to provide perspective that I think is a little bit more nuanced. Provide time for whoever I'm talking with, be it a woman or a man or a person of color or what have you, a little bit more time to talk about what they care about versus what I care about, because I think that's more important. And that's what I want to focus on. In terms of specifically like masculinity traits, one that I try not to do is I try not to talk over. Like when I do talk and I do feel passionate about something or have something to say, I can talk into somebody as we're speaking, and that's kind of can be a masculine trait. And so I try to be keenly aware of when I do that to remind myself, and then also apologize when I do, because I don't want to shut down anybody from talking or getting their point across. So that's kind of what comes to mind to me when I talk about masculinity in the workplace. Exactly.
Yeah. Good thoughts, Brett. Thanks.
Mine would be I just try to consider my audience, and I do have more girls typically in my classes. And so I try to think about what videos, what examples am I going to use that's relevant for them, which is why I try to get to know my students a little bit. And then also the theories and stuff, I try to incorporate theories that are female oriented. A lot of theories in psychology were created by white men. So I just try to think a little bit about how could I incorporate this theory a little bit more from Karen Horney, for example. She has a really great theory about anxiety and stuff like that. So yeah, I just try to make sure that I'm incorporating different people, different backgrounds, considering the audience. I have taken that into account for examples and videos and ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think it's just like understanding as a man what of course, there's some privilege that's built into that. And I think anytime with that privilege, to me, understanding that privilege and then using it, not necessarily to my advantage, but using it as an advantage to help other folks, right? And so I think understanding what that power dynamic may look like as a man. I also think it's somewhat different, right? I'm not a white man. And so I know when I walk in the room, yes, people see me as a man, but also see me as a person of color. And so I think sometimes with those two identities, sometimes feel like I have to overcompensate to prove certain things, right? To prove my intelligence, to prove my worth, to prove the reason why that I'm there. And so I think it's that balance between understanding that privilege, using that privilege to empower other people, but also sometimes just having to prove myself to other folks as a brown man in a space that, working education for the longest time, especially at large Southern schools. Most of my schools are research and land-grant institutions in the Southeast that I've worked at in my first 12 years. Most of the leadership in the room are going to be white men. And so I oftentimes had to prove myself that this is why I'm here. This is my expertise. This is why you should trust me. And so I think that was often what was front of my mind more than just being a man, but really being a man of color in those types of spaces.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you brought that up. I'm going to continue looking for that experience to be shared. So I really do appreciate you bringing that up for us. So, I mean, it's clear as I've listened to y'all kind of define masculinity and talk about masculinity in the workplace and hear about the way that your dads, y'all are pretty advanced, right? Like, I think your ideas, not everyone, if I ask the question about masculinity, not everyone would probably have such a healthy answer. Like, I'm thinking back to, it's taken me 38 years to get to the place where I have any sort of like healthy understanding of like who I am as a man. And I really had to go back and like learn more about myself first in order to figure out like what was okay. The masculinity shaped me in a pretty aggressively negative way, to be very honest with you. Like in high school, I was 5'2" going into my junior year of high school, folks. Like I'm 6'1" now, but like junior year, high pitched voice, 5'2", short little chubby kid. And I was the manager on the varsity basketball team. And our varsity basketball team was very good. We had several players between 6'5" and 6'8", right? And I'm this 5'2" kid. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm being shaped to like, this is what you're supposed to be. This is, right? Like I'm looking at these statues of high school boys who I now know, like, that wasn't normal at all. Like, I rarely meet someone that's 6'6" anymore, but I had to really overcome some body image issues that came as a result of watching that and internalizing that. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what was that path like for you all to get to this healthy place with these healthy definitions of, Brett, you said masculinity is about growth and it's about evolution, and that's so beautiful. But how do you get to that place? What was the journey like for you to get there?
Yeah, I think similar to you, Chad, right? I'm a half Filipino man who has lived in the Southeast most of my life. Growing up, I've always been, like in high school, same. I'm 5'7" now. I think in high school I was like 5'5", 5'4", right? This short brown guy in a space of mostly white folks. I've always been like that one brown guy in a sea of white faces, whether it be in my high school in a very rural part of Georgia. I was in an IFC fraternity at a PWI, right? I was oftentimes again in southeastern land grant institutions throughout my career. So it's been something that I've struggled with for a long time. So growing up and leaning into my identities and my growth, oftentimes, the compliment that I would often get is like, "Hey, Larry, you are you can blend in with any space, right? You're a chameleon, right?" And the reality is, and very much with my masculinity, I felt that I had to do that. I had to blend in because the opposite of blending in is standing out. And to me, standing out was my worst nightmare. I did not want to be that random guy in the corner that was unlike anybody else. And so there was one thing I can control. I can control my skin color, right? I'm not going to be a white man tomorrow. One thing that I could blend in even more was to blend into what I thought a man was. I had to dress a certain way. I had to talk a certain way. I had to make certain comments or insults or jokes, or I had to laugh at things that I know probably weren't funny or appropriate. But if I didn't laugh at those things, again, I'm standing out in more ways than I want to.
My God.
So I think as I've grown up, I think I've challenged that. I've seen how that's hurt other people. And then as I've met my partner, as I've made really strong friendships, as I've become a dad, again, I think all those things have really shaped me and made me understand, and especially as I teach my son, that, you have to be true to you, right? I think as you're able to be true to yourself, really understand and support and be really confident and love who you are, you're able to love other people a lot more and live a much more healthy life. It's come a long way. I'm still battling a lot of those things still. But I think it's just an opportunity to say, I don't have to be somebody that someone else thinks I need to be, that everyone's better off, including myself, my family, my son, everyone is better off when I can just be me. And it's just been a long journey to get there, still figuring it out. But I think it's something that I'm still am really embracing and going into a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think for me, gosh, Ted, takes you back like
deep
school
questions
days.
for a Friday afternoon, my friend.
Like,
Episode 1, baby.
Golly. I mean, my first sort of like foundation that I can like go back and think about, like when I was first confronted with sort of masculinity and being a man and being, seeing what it felt like to kind of be on the receiving end of like a little bit of an over-aggressive situation was, I mean, in middle school, I played golf and I really didn't think about like, how strong or my size or anything. I'm relatively like average. I'm just under 6 feet tall. I'm skinny. Like there's nothing really special, but I grew up in a school system in Southwest Oklahoma that was 70% people of color and about 30%, people are white. That was a good experience for me, but also like I was also like on the smaller side of a lot of scale because there was like some big athletic people around me. We had this big athletic programs. And for me, like figuring out who I was going to be, figure out my place in school systems, because, you're just trying to figure out your way. When I got into, it would have been junior high, I started getting bullied pretty severely. And that was my first experience of like, oh, I was like, who I am, the way I present myself. I was always a pretty artsy kid. I golf. So I was a pretty easy target to be bullied on. And I made my way through that, I was fortunate enough to have parents who got me into some like self-defense classes, and like I figured out how to work through it. A lot of people don't have that experience, but I quickly realized that like being the strongest, being the biggest, being the most aggressive person in the room was not the way that I viewed masculinity. Like, that's not who I wanted to be. Experience in junior high and then moving through high school and all that junk. That informed who I wanted to be. That informed who the people I wanted to hang out with. That informed the people that I followed and wanted to emulate as a man. So yeah, foundationally, I think that's probably what influenced me growing up and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's heavy, man.
It is.
Yeah, you took it there. I mean, not me.
Sorry to hear about the bullying.
Anything else, Taylor? You look like you had some thoughts as they were talking.
Yeah, for sure. My brothers, they had that toxic masculinity for sure. The biggest, the strongest, was how they lived. They fought all the time, including fighting me and doing their wrestling moves on me and stuff,
It was kind of chaos over there.
Yeah, no doubt. There definitely was. And because I had some repressed rage that, during my teenage years came out when I wrestled and played football. But I don't think a lot of people knew that I also played house a lot at home. And I, was someone who didn't really believe in the toxic masculinity. Like I did when I played sports, I did live up to that. I remember I wrestled the whole match with my eyes taped shut because I cut my head open and won the match, Anyway, and I bring that up because I feel like I have to, in a way, because I'm about to tell you that, just how I don't know, sensitive, caring person I was. But when I played sports, I had to play a different role, and anyway, so I always kind of questioned the norms that I saw around me with my brothers, especially because I just knew that's not how I wanted to be, And so I think that's part of the reason why I teach psychology now is just wanting the peace then and wanting it now in the world, I guess. And also just trying to understand the people and the men around me, but also knowing that I was a lot different than them. And my parents knew it too. So
yeah,
what made me who I am, I would say.
Yeah. Deep. Listen, I wasn't.
When did you become 6'1"? Because I don't remember. I still view Chad as 5'8" like me.
Yeah. It's funny because I think my junior year there's a sports physical for golf that was I'm 5'2" my junior year, and then the sports physical my senior year I'm 5'11", and I'm like, what the hell happened? All of a sudden I could see down the whole hallway. It was only recently I've been 6 foot my whole adulthood, but recently I had a doctor that measured me at 6'1", and I said, we're going with you. I like your opinion.
Nice.
That's what I'm taking. So I'm gonna keep getting taller here. Well, guys, all right. Well, I appreciate you. I jumped into some really heavy stuff. Not every episode is going to be tackling issues like this. We're going to take a look more in future episodes at what's kind of happening in pop culture or what society is telling us it means to be a man and kind of react to some of those. So we'll have some fun with it along the way. One thing that I want to start at the end of every segment or at the end of every, our final segment, our end of every show, is something I'm calling the hot take. So I want to give each of you 30, 45 seconds, whatever you want. You can take it if you want or not take it if you don't want, but the chair is yours. You get to have a hot take. It can be whatever you want, whatever's on your mind. No need to explain it. Just drop it and let it hang on. So this is your chance. It could be an opinion, a thought, a challenge to the group, or whatever is on your mind. So as you guys think about it, I'm going to take an opportunity to rant here. This week, the toilet broke and my wife comes into the room and she says, hey, Chad, the toilet broke. And I looked at her and I said, why the hell are you telling me? I don't know anything about toilets. So I'm always laughing with my wife just because there's certain things that pop up that goes wrong with the house. And she looks at me like I have any experience with this. And luckily now after 15 years of marriage, I do have some experience. I've broken enough toilets that I know how to fix it this time. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that out, that hot take. Don't just look at me because I'm the guy. I don't know how to fix your toilet either, all right? All right.
I worked a decade at Menards in the plumbing. If you ever need to know where something is, at Menards.
That boy, thank you. I had to just buy a new little 2-inch something. I don't know. Listen, I don't know. It's in there. I got to fix it still. So, all right, what do you guys got?
I'm fixing the exact same thing at my toilet too, Chad. Look at that. Small world.
Exactly.
I would say the Super Bowl Sunday. So to me, my hot take is Super Bowl commercials are not as good as they used to be, right?
I agree.
You remember back in the day when a Super Bowl commercial came on and literally the entire country would talk about it, like the Budweiser frogs. Like, come on, where is
Budweiser
our nation, our
generation's
generation's Budweiser frogs? I blame the internet. They release all the commercials way too early, so they don't have the same impact. We need to get back to better Super Bowl commercials. Get it together, Mark.
I am looking forward to the Dunkin' Donuts one with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. I wouldn't mind if, hopefully there's a sequel on that one this year. That was a funny one.
That was a good one too.
But otherwise, I totally agree with you, Larry. Brett, Taylor, you going to take your opportunity to have a hot take or not this week?
I have my hot take is I have no idea who the Super Bowl performer is.
Hmm.
Well, Kendrick's
Kendrick
the
Lamar.
best, dude.
He just won a Grammy. Lots of Grammys.
He won
Yeah, I
all the
saw that.
Grammys.
I saw that, but like I went into, I knew the name, but the music itself, I like went into like, oh, who is this? Like in terms of music,
Yeah.
and so I went into, I started playing. I was like, oh,
Like best of still
I was like,
wasn't.
I'm getting old, or I'm just behind.
I think we're officially not their target demographic.
Oh,
I think it's
100%.
just time to
I was
acknowledge
just
that.
like, I started playing. And I was like, I don't know a single lyric in any of these songs, and so then I just felt really old.
Yeah,
And
you should.
Yeah.
You should. The fact you don't know Kendrick Lamar, come on, guys. We gotta fix that.
I mean, I know
That
it's
beef with Drake, you got a lot of shit to catch up on, Brett.
I know Drake, but
I'm not familiar with the music either.
You're just Team
Feel
Drake. All right.
That's what
Make
it
the
is. That's what it
proclamation
is.
now. He's Team
Uh-huh.
Drake.
Watch out, y'all.
All right. Not the side I
Yeah.
want to be on right now, Brett. Not the side I want to be on.
well, I know.
He's like, God damn it, I should have never said anything. All right, Taylor, bring us home, man. What do you got for a hot
is the
take?
NFL rigged? Is it rigged? What do you guys think? Because I'm kind of leaning towards they should have the Eagles win if it is rigged to bring some faith back to the NFL. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that. Just an example is they're saying now that they're going to use automatic way to measure where the ball is, which should have been a thing a long time ago, right?
Right.
But I saw a meme that said, why did something happen? And referring to that Josh Allen play where he was clearly over the line,
Oh, yeah.
So, is it
Same
rigged?
referees.
You guys think it's rigged?
No, I don't.
I don't know if
think
it's rigged. I think that there is a lean. One of my best friends is a Chiefs fan, so I give him crap about this all the time. The referees are definitely they favor Mahomes a lot more than other quarterbacks. And I don't think that's fair. Just my opinion. But
So
hey,
he gets a few calls, you're saying. He gets a few
Right.
calls. Yeah.
so
But if
Hey,
you're on
I
track
don't-
to be the GOAT, maybe you should get I don't know. No, you probably shouldn't. I can understand it, I guess, from that angle.
Listen, I was really bitter during the Tom Brady years. Like, nobody should get to win that many times. And now that he's retired, I look back on it and I'm like, wow, it's kind of cool that we got to see that because we're going to talk about that for the rest of our lives. I do not feel that way about Patrick Mahomes right now. I want them to lose. But
Same.
yeah, just let it end. I'm so sick of it.
I would like to see Barkley have 100 yards, 2 touchdowns at least, and just carry the
There
team.
you go.
Running
There you
backs
go.
show like, hey, we're still relevant, and you
There
never
you
should
go.
have said we
Pay
weren't.
'em.
They were
Well,
saying
my
that.
daughter is excited that she found out both Taylor Swift and Kendrick Lamar are going to be at this Super Bowl, and she cannot wait to tune in. So I'll be definitely tuning in for all of those things.
Yeah, okay. So if the Chiefs win and Kelsey proposes, is that rigged?
Yeah, definitely. Sure, I'll go with you there.
I would say
Nah,
yeah.
I don't.
I see
I
it.
don't know. It's a little
I would
sketch.
love it. I'm going to go crazy if that actually happens. All right, fellas. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode. Great conversation. I can already tell it's going to be something special. So for those of you listening, if this conversation resonated with you, please share it with another dad or a husband or anybody. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another conversation that hopefully makes us think a little bit deeper. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your people, and we'll all see you back in the men's room in 2 weeks. Take care, guys.